All right. So, hello, and welcome to HRBC show called Let's Talk. I'm Nina, your host. This November, the 3rd Congressional District will be voting for a representative. Today, we have Mr. Ted Engquist, who is hoping to get the Republican nomination in June. So, welcome. And would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. First off, Anita, thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor that I get to be on this show with the Hampton Roads Black Caucus, and of all months, February, Black History Month. And so I'm excited to talk a little bit about what we have going on. Just a brief history. I'm a minister, have been for 12 years, and my father was the same. He was a minister for over 50 years, raised in a Christian home. That's where I get my conservative values from. It's also where I get my love for people and understanding that we need to have open arms and accept everybody and love everybody, and that we're all created equally. And that's where my roots came from. So a lot of what I do is based out of the Bible. I don't push my religion, but it's what I believe in, and it's what I was raised up on. And so it's what I try to live my life by.
Awesome. All right. So, I have some questions for you.
Sure.
All right. How will you support economic improvement in the African American community if elected?
Great question. I think the thing we need to focus on first and foremost, and it's one of the main things I'm running on, and that's equality. We need equality in our jobs, equality in our pay, equality in promotions. If we can just conquer that one small feat, it would be a huge step for us. We need to get a mindset where we can accomplish these economic advances. And if we do that, we also need to empower our African American community and our minority community so we can service better as business owners and get better promotions and equip them with training and other stuff so they can be prepared for promotions and literally treat them with equality. And I think if we do that, we can actually move forward. If I borrow a thought from the great President Kennedy, and I know he related it to a much bigger topic, but I think we can relate it to equality. And that is, if we can come together in equality and give equality to everyone, it's a small step for an individual, but a large step for the quality of all.
Awesome. Okay. What are your thoughts on the governor's removal of the mask mandate in schools?
Well, I just spoke about equality. And I think we need to have equality when it comes to mask mandates. If you remember, we previously had a governor that mandated everybody has to wear a mask. And for the most part, people adhered and listened. And so now that we have a governor that's removing the mandate, all of a sudden there are people want to fight about it, want to argue about it, and don't want to listen to our governor. Why can't we give this governor the same equal treatment that we gave our previous governor? Let him rule the people as he was voted to do. And so with that concept, I kind of agree with Governor Youngkin and the fact that the mask mandate needs to be lifted. And remember, he's not removing and saying you cannot wear a mask. He's simply saying it needs to be up to the individual and their parents as to whether they wear a mask or not. And that I totally agree with. And I think if we can do that, we could move forward together. I support people who wear masks. I support those that don't wear a mask. My issue is let it be the individual's choice as to what they want to do and how they want to protect themselves.
So when you say individuals, are you saying the parent's choice, whether their child?
Yeah, great question. For a child, yes, it's the parent's choice. But I think even our teachers need to have the choice to whether they want to wear a mask or not. I think every individual, individual choice is the mark of true freedom. And we need to give that freedom back to the American people.
All right. So Speaking of individual choice, let's roll into my next question. You seem to be a big pro-life person. So can you explain to me how you one hand says parents can, make those choices and then change up and say, well, in this case though, they can't make choices.
So you're talking about being pro-life?
Yes.
Well, it's a misnomer saying that it's pro-life or pro-choice. It's really pro-life or pro-death. And as a Christian and as a minister, I'm totally aware that life is given to us by Almighty God. And so that's what I teach and that's what I preach. But you have to understand also that I don't believe that we should be aborting our babies because of that very nature, because where life comes from. It's not up to us to determine whether we have life or not. That's up to Almighty God. When we wake up in the morning, God chooses to give us breath in our lungs to breathe. And so I feel that we need to leave that in God's hands. But let me tell you what a woman does have a choice for. She has two choices. She can choose whether she wants to be in a relationship or not intimately with a man. That's her choice. The second thing is she can choose whether she wants to use some form of protection or childbirth or child control so she prevents childbirth. That's her choice also. And those are choices that need to be made between her, the significant other, and a doctor, and make the best choice for them as an individual. But where they don't have a choice is kind of a similar situation with the vaccine. If you decide to get the vaccine, you have to think about some things. A, is it going to help me out? And you go through that process. Yeah, I need it because of X, Y, and Z factors. So you decide to get the vaccine. That's your choice. But once that needle is stuck in your arm and that vaccine is injected inside of you, you don't have a choice of how your body reacts to it. Some people, no problems at all. Other people, mild symptoms. Others, deathly sick because of the vaccine. Some have even died from the vaccine. So you take that same concept, and it's a choice to have that vaccine or not. It's a choice as to whether they want to have the relationship or not. They know going in that there's consequences that could result. And we need to let people own their consequences. Take ownership of it. And absolutely, you have a choice. Now, if we're talking rape, incest in the life of the mother, I'm pragmatic enough to have an open door and let's have a discussion about that. But let's eliminate the abortions that are used as a means of birth control. Think about the African American population, speaking about equality. It's at 14%, 14.2% of the American people are African American. But yet the African American population makes up 40% of all abortions. Why are we killing the African Americans? Doctors kill more African Americans in a year than police officers do. But we don't speak on that because we think people need their choice. And to me, the choice was the night before, not after it's already happened. You need to take those consequences into consideration and then plan accordingly.
Okay. So again, stick with choice, pro-life. Does it just stop with the babies and in pregnancies? What about the people that are on death row?
From the womb to the tomb, I'm pro-life.
Okay.
And I know a lot of Republicans aren't going to like me for this, but I am not necessarily a strong proponent of the death sentence. I believe that even criminals, no matter what they did, deserves a second chance because of God's grace. Now, I will say this much. I do know where the death penalty comes from. God instituted it about 3,000 years before Moses wrote the law, when just soon after they left the garden and, Cain killed his brother Abel. Shortly after that, God said, if any man takes another man's life, his life will be owed. And that's where the death penalty comes in, life for life. But when we get to the New Testament, we have God's grace. God already gave us his life. So we need to give that same benefit to every individual, including a criminal that doesn't deserve it. Because let's face it, none of us deserve God's grace, but we're given it on a daily basis. And so let's give that to everybody and give everybody an equal opportunity to succeed and an equal opportunity to live, and let God determine when that life is gone.
Okay. You got a Facebook question. They wanted to know, do teachers, should they have a choice of teaching students with no mask?
So the way the question came across, I think the teacher should have the choice of whether to wear a mask or not. A teacher, I think what they're asking is should a teacher have a choice whether to teach a child if the child is unmasked?
Mm-hmm.
And that is her choice, is whether, or his choice, whether they want to continue teaching or not. If they're going to continue teaching, then yes. If a child chooses not to wear a mask, then they need to teach that child. Because the mask, to me, and the science backs me up on this, doesn't do anything for the other person. It only stops you, the individual, because they're one way. They're not a two-way mask. The cloth mask that people are wearing today only protects me from breathing in. It doesn't protect anything from coming out. So a mask only protects the individual wearing it, not everybody around them. And so the teacher, if they're worried about it, I highly recommend that they wear a mask. My wife is a teacher. My daughter is a teacher, or she's a student teacher in Newport News right now. She'll have her master's in teaching by the end of the summer. And so she's going into the teaching profession. And they need to have the choice to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. But they do need to teach every student that comes in, because every student, masked or unmasked, needs the equal opportunity to succeed.
Okay. So if you're in Virginia, you heard and learned that the governor passed the executive order for from K through 12, no teaching of the critical race theory, which is interesting. But here's my question. The hotline that he instituted to report teachers for divisive teaching. What do you think about that?
Well, let me start by reminding you what I just said. I'm the husband of a teacher, so I need to be a little careful on this one. A happy wife is a happy life. And so let me say this. A good thing mistreated becomes a bad thing. And what I mean by that is if we abuse what this line was intended for, then it becomes a bad thing. We need to make sure we're focused on the intentions of what this hotline is for, okay? And so by looking at it, you have to also understand that we are here to build bridges. Those bridges might be between racial barriers. They might be between socioeconomics. They might be, there's a number of things where bridges need to be built. Our teachers need to be with us in helping us build those bridges, not causing division within our school system. And so anything that causes division, I'm against. And so I fully support Governor Youngkin's ban on teaching divisive material in our schools. And it could be under the guise of critical race theory. It could be under the guise of diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are all forms of divisive teaching, because it doesn't matter if you're for it or against it. It's causing division among the people. And we need to move on from division. There's a much better policy that's in place. My daughter's telling me about it as she was going through her training at CNU. It's called Cultural Resource Initiative. A lot of people have never heard of it. Why? Because it doesn't cause the division and the uproar of CRT. But let me tell you what Cultural Resource Initiative is, and it's a great program. I highly support it. I highly recommend it, and I think it needs to be in every single school system across the nation. And Cultural Resource Initiative is opening up our canon. So there's more African American authors, more female authors, more Hispanic authors. And so our young men and women can get a broader understanding of all history. You see, that's done from a non-divisive manner. And that's what we need to focus on. Let's come up with a solution where all history can be taught, but not cause the division that it's causing within our school systems today. Going back to the exact question though about the hotline, as long as what my fear is this, parents are going to use it as a complaint line. And you're driving down the road though, and you see these bumper stickers that say, "Call me or call this number if I'm driving unsafe." Well, people could abuse that, but my hope is that the teachers will think about, hey, am I teaching culturally? Am I teaching the proper way? Am I causing division? And let's hope that that's what the teachers on the teacher's mind, and it maybe changes the way they approach their students. And let's face it, we're going into the third year of teaching under a pandemic. Teachers are stressed out. They're at their wits' end. Unless you're a teacher or married to one, it is unfathomable what they've had to do and go through. There are nights because of the online learning and everything else that my wife doesn't go to bed till 11 and 12 o'clock at night. And it's just unreasonable, the stress that they are under. So let's take that into consideration if you do use the hotline. And let's not use it to bash our teachers, but let's teach our young people to respect our teachers. Because one thing I'm going to push is we need more African American teachers. This is an area that is greatly lacking. And role model, there's a lot of people that look up to my wife as a role model. And we would love to have a lot of African Americans being in there as role models, teaching these young men and women. But we can't do it if we're just going to tear them down and be divisive and not show the teachers their proper respect. So let's promote unity. And I'm all for the hotline.
Okay. So as a Portsmouth citizen, that's me, I am, who makes over the minimum amount required to get a break for the tolls, how do you feel about supporting breaks for all Portsmouth citizens?
That's a great question. I was talking to a gentleman last week, and he was born and raised in Australia. And I wish I could talk with his accent, but I can't. So I'll spare you guys the details. He was telling me he paid $70 a week in tolls.
Oh.
And so $70 a month in Virginia was much appreciated. So really, it's a matter of perspective. But let me get right down to the point. I disagree with the current structure, because who can arbitrarily say if you make under 30,000, you qualify for toll relief, over 30,000, you don't qualify. And let me put that in perspective. Let's say a young person just gets out of high school, they get a great job at the shipyard, and that they make $29,500, living at home, no bills, no expenses, no children. Do they really need a $650 relief in tolls? Probably not. But let's take that same individual. They get married, they have 2 kids, they're living in an apartment, and they get a raise. They're making $30,500. Well, that person needs a whole lot more relief than just $650 in tolls, but they disqualified under the current plan. And so I think that they need to redo that legislation. I would totally support legislation to make it more individual based and need based versus an arbitrarily $30,000 as your cutoff.
Okay. Would you support military veterans' retirement pay not being taxed? I'm a veteran also.
Well, in that case, Nina, thank you so much for your service. You are a hero, and I honor you today.
Thanks.
And with that, I honor all of our veterans. I think our veterans are some of the most unsung heroes across America. And we need to lift up and respect every one of them. I salute you all today, and God bless you for your years of service, whether it was one tour or multiple tours of duty. We appreciate everything you've done. And with that being said, right now there's men and women that are serving across seas, and they leave their family behind, knowing that that calculated risk is there that they might not return. We're talking husbands, we're talking wives, we're talking fathers, and we're talking sons and daughters. I think that's enough taxation. So let's get rid of this taxing any benefit that's given to a veteran and let them live their lives in peace without taxation. Now, if they're go on and they come home and they get a different career, then you can, that income needs to be taxed for, back to the equality purpose. But their veteran benefits, absolutely hands off, do not tax. And I would 100% support any legislation to help our veterans.
Awesome. What do you think about the casinos coming to Portsmouth and Norfolk?
I'm really mixed on this one. And I'll tell you why. Politically, I really don't have an opinion yet. I'm in the process of developing one. Of course, as an individual, as a minister, I actually teach against the perils of gambling. I teach that we need to be wise stewards of our money. It's God's money, not ours. And I don't think he likes to gamble. And so that's my take. But I also know I can't legislate somebody's heart. I can't legislate whether somebody does right or wrong. And so looking at a simply legal perspective from it and taking away my personal feelings, I would really have to see a couple of things. And the biggest issue would be, what is the crime rate going to be around the casino? Is it going to have an increase in drunk driving because people are drinking while they're gambling? Is there drugs use? Is it going to be a casino where it's a hotel where if they do get inebriated or use too much drugs or alcohol, they can stay there for the night? Those are all things I would like to see take place. But the biggest concern is the safety of our children, the safety of the people that live near the casinos. And so that would be my number one priority. I would think that if we do use the casinos, I know they can be great money makers. Going back to equality, it can provide good paying jobs for a lot of people. And not just that work at the casino, cleaning around it and restaurants and other things that lead up to it. So I think that we've got some good things out there, and it could be a benefit, but I would not want to jeopardize the health and safety of our Commonwealth. And so what I would want to see is I want to see increased police presence. And I'd also want to see some mandatory alcohol screening as they're leaving to limit the amount of drunk driving that's being done down there. And to supplement that, we would literally charge a percentage or a fee to the casinos out of their profits. And that would pay for the increased police presence, so we wouldn't have to pass a tax on to our people, because that is not being fiscally responsible.
Okay. So speaking of police presence, do you believe in community policing?
Well, that's a tough area. Okay. Let me tell you why. I absolutely believe we need to look out for each other. I've got a great neighbor here next to me, and we watch each other's properties. And if we see something suspicious, we'll call each other and say, hey, are you expecting somebody over at the house? There's a black car in your driveway. Are you expecting the black car? And yeah, that's my son-in-law, or, whatever. Okay. That part of self-policing is fine. But the danger of self-policing is what happened to Ahmaud Arbery down in Georgia. That was absolutely terrible. Those guys got what they deserved when they were all found guilty of murder. And that's the danger that I would have of opening up self-policing, is that people take it too far. They take the law into their own hands and they shoot innocent people. And that cannot happen.
Okay. If elected, what would your first 3 items be to get accomplished?
Sure. I've already mentioned equality, and that's a big one for me. And so I would like to review the Equality Act and see what kind of wording is in there right now to see and ensure that everybody is being treated fairly. I want to make sure that there's some language in there that if businesses are found guilty of not treating people equally, that they are reprimanded and financial consequences ensue. I think if a individual does not treat others equally as an employer, they need to lose that position. I think that, and that all needs to be in the Equality Act. It's one thing to say, hey, we're going to push equality. Here's this Equality Act. Okay, that's great. Now, what's the consequences if you don't follow it? Because the Bible says that the strength of the law is sin. We have to make sure that if we have something out there, that we have something to back it up and put some strength behind it and teeth behind it. So that's the first thing I would like to do is look at the Equality Act and make sure that it's really the thing we need to do. The second thing is we need to, and I talked about the safety and security of the Commonwealth, but we need that same security across America. We need to ensure that we are being safe. And one of the biggest things right now, and I'm working with one of the former delegates, and she's done some great work in this Hampton Roads region. I'll give a great shout out to Tanya Gold. And I've been talking to her, and I'm trying to get a class together on sex trafficking. We need sex trafficking awareness training. That is a major problem here in America. And sometimes we look away. But I talked to another friend of mine that goes down to the border all the time. And he said one of the major issues with them coming across the border the way they are right now is that sex trafficking is just running rampant. 11-year-old girls being trafficked. And they even target them even younger. And it's the saddest thing. And so we need to really look into sex trafficking and make a big nationwide push to stop that horrible practice. And everybody involved needs equal justice. And then the second thing is we're allowing so many people into our country right now that are unvaccinated, that are actually infected with COVID. And we wonder why we can't slow down the spread. When Joe Biden first ran, he said that he had a plan to stop the spread of COVID. And just dogged on President Trump. Well, if you look at their numbers in the last year that President Trump was in office and the first year of Joe Biden, there's actually more people died from COVID under Joe Biden than it was under Donald Trump. And so there wasn't a plan in place. And how can you put a plan in place when you're allowing people to come into this country untested and allowing sick people with COVID to come into the country? And so I would like to have a port of entry to funnel everybody through the same port so they can be screened coming in, and so they can receive the proper medical attention that they need. And that will do two things. Number one, it'll stop some of the sex trafficking. Number two, it'll lower the amount of COVID cases in America. And I think both of those would increase our security and the safety of the people here at home and abroad. I think we need to, like I said earlier about equality, we need to have open doors. This is the land of the free and the land of opportunity. Just look at our current Attorney General, Jason Miyares, our Lieutenant Governor, Winston Sears. Both of them are children of immigrants that came here to America to find a better place for their family, a land of opportunity. And we need to make sure that America continues to be a land of opportunity. But the only way to do that is to make sure that equality is pushed for everybody, and everybody comes through the same port of entry to get the same treatment and the same opportunity. And then the third thing is we hear a lot about free, fair elections or voter suppression, and it depends on who's talking. Okay. Here's what I want. And here's what I'm going to work on when I get to office. When I get to DC, I want to make sure that your vote counts. I want to make sure that everybody who goes to the poll, your poll counts. your vote counts. Equal opportunity. And if you can't make it, I want to have equal opportunity for you to vote absentee. But I don't want it just to be a blanket where we mail everybody an absentee ballot. My daughter got 5 absentee ballots mailed to her. 2 of them were already filled out. And they weren't sample ballots. They were actually ready to send back in a self-addressed stamped envelope. That shouldn't happen in America. She should request one. If she has a reason that she can't vote in person, we have a 45-day window for voting. And so early voting is absolutely here, and we need to take advantage of it. But also the absentee ballots, if you request one, and we need to make sure that every vote is counted and every vote has equal weight. And so I want equality in our voting process.
Okay. Can we back up to when you were saying about the border and you want a main point for someone to come in, and if they have COVID, they will get treated. So we in essence will be giving them free medical
I didn't say that
upon
we would.
arrival.
So no. If you test somebody coming in, you can stop them from coming in until and you can let them know you have COVID. You need to go get medical treatment.
Oh, okay.
Come back when you are healthy.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood that.
No, remember, I'm running. My main point I'm running on is equality, and it wouldn't be equal treatment if we pay for somebody else's medical expense, and they haven't paid taxes. They haven't been a citizen of the United States. They haven't inputted anything in. Well, we don't want to become a third world country by giving all of our money away to everybody else. But at the same time, we want to have an open mindset to allow people to come in here to America, because this is a great country. It's like Winsome Sears said. I heard her at a event when she was campaigning. America may not be what she ought to be, but thank God she ain't what she used to be. And I believe that statement wholeheartedly. I was raised on that statement in church. They used to talk about people coming in and say, thank God I may not be what I ought to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be. And so America's not perfect, no. But this is the greatest place to raise a family. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And I think everybody in the world needs to have the opportunity to come to America, but do it the right way.
Okay. How do you feel about term limits for Congress?
I've been back and forth on this issue. And I've talked to the constituents, and they've been back and forth on it. Some of them want one and done, like we do with our governor here in Virginia. Others want, 4, 6 years or 8 years, like we do with our president. I would not be opposed to listening to some arguments about term limits. But here's what I look at. If we're going to do term limits, we need to extend the House of Congress from a 2-year to a 4-year term. And then if it's a 4-year term, how many terms? Well, I already mentioned our military, we do 20 and out. So there's a starting point. You could do like a 20-year term limit, do 5 4-year terms for a congressman. And then, it'd be 3 or 4 years for a senator, which would be 18 or 24 years. But here's the point. If you're going to do that, it's going to take a bipartisan support, because we got to amend the Constitution. The Constitution declares what we do for offices. It sets term limits for the presidency, and it does not set term limits for the House of Congress or House of Representatives or the Senate. So in order to change that, which I would be for, it's going to have to get some bipartisan support. So I would definitely be working towards something in that nature. The 20 years is probably where I would start to have that conversation. And then as soon as I would have 66% of the vote in the Senate, we would move forward in the House and get something passed.
Okay. Yeah. How do you feel about the Electoral College? You think we still need that?
I think it's a good system if, obviously used the proper manner. Um, there are checks and balances within that system already, and I think they work. Um, and so in all the elections that we've seen, I don't think we've seen an abuse of the Electoral College. So I think it's a good system.
Okay. And so my last question. So the third district is a Democratic this district. Mostly they win.
It
So
is?
if I was a diehard Democrat, why should I vote for you?
Well, let me tell you why. Because I'm all about the people. To me, it's not about the party, it's about the person. Where's your heart? And I think from this last 20 or 30 minutes that we've been on here, everybody can understand one thing about me, and I'm about treating everybody fairly and equally. You can't say that you've had fair and equal treatment the last 30 years under the current congressman. Crime rate's gone up, poverty's gone up. We've got over 20% of our people living in poverty. What's the current guy done? Has he helped you out at all? He throws a barbecue every year, but does that really help your economic situation out? Has he really done anything about helping the equality of the African American people? And I know he's African American. And I'm not saying anything negative about it. I'm just asking, has he helped you out? And if the answer is no, they always define insanity as doing the same thing the same way and expecting a different result. Why not give somebody else an opportunity to step in here and really bring some equality? Because after all, united we stand, divided we fall. And one of the biggest issues that I see that I'm fighting against is racism. We need to put an end to racism and social injustice. Well, how can you do that if all the solutions are coming from one side? Mom always used to say, it takes two to tangle. Well, if I'm part of the problem, then vote me in and let me be part of the solution. I want to help you. I'm here to help, and I'm here to put an end to racism. And the only way we're going to do that is tearing down the middle wall of petition, which means people from my side and people from the other side, both racially and politically, need to work together. And I would end with this. Unity is not conformity. Unity is putting our differences aside and walking hand in hand for the betterment of mankind. Will you walk with me and make mankind better?
Okay. So that is all the questions that I have for you, and I really appreciate you coming out and talking with us. Do you have any closing statements? Anything else you want to let us know?
Sure. Nina, thank you so much for having me on here. Coming from a blended family myself, I see racism and social injustice from a different perspective. I look down and it's so sad seeing the way people treat my nieces and nephews and potentially my grandchildren. My daughter's actually dating an African American. And so potentially we'll have my grandkids will be a blended family. And it just hurts me. And it saddens me that people get mistreated based on the color of their skin. Dr. King said it so eloquently. You can't fight hate with hate. You got to fight it with love. He also said that he dreams of a day that we will judge each other by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And I tell people that he had a dream, but I have a vision. And my vision is that this is the generation that's going to see that come to pass. I truly believe if I'm elected, Newport News, Hampton Roads area will be a catalyst that's going to show the world that we can put an end to racism and social injustice by treating everybody equally and fairly. God bless America, God bless Virginia, and God bless you.
All right. right. Well, thank you. And that is all we have for you.
Thank you.
Take care.